Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be doing my preview of the, excuse me, the MMA card a little bit early this week. So if there's fights that drop off, obviously, keep that in mind. If there's replacement fighters, keep that in mind. But I'm not going to be around to record the rest of the week, so I figured I'd at least get something out there to you guys. It's a tremendous card. Both from a fan's perspective and from a DFS perspective. It can look somewhat daunting. I mean, there's 15 fights probably that are going to go, but I think that what you're going to need to do is just take stands on several of these fights and just not play any of it, even though it might be tempting to try to get different. It might be tempting to take shots. There's just so many smash spots here that it just seems as though fading all of them, it seems pretty foolhardy. Over the last, 3, 4, 5 weeks even, we haven't seen a lot of these fights with, these really strong inside the distance props throughout the card. And this week you get a bunch of them. So you really are going to have to target those fights, and to fade those, you're just really not playing the percentage game. There are a couple of spots which can overcome the inside the distance prop, but not many. And we're going to go through them. First of all, let's just dispense with the obvious. The main event is something you're going to want to put in your lineups. These are two of the best fighters in the world. And I only say that from a DFS perspective because one thing I found is that if you have a 5-round fight between guys that know what they're doing, I mean, you're going to get like a lot of volume. You're going to get a lot of stuff going on. And even if this fight doesn't finish, those 5 rounds are just going to just pile up the significant strikes, pile up the takedowns, pile up the points, and you're just going to want to have that in your lineups. The pricing is pretty favorable. 8,600, 7,600. You can take both sides of this fight. I really don't have much of an opinion on whether the line is wrong, obviously. So I would certainly take one of these two in both in your lineups. That's clear. So let's talk about some of these others. I mean, let's just get right to it. First one, and this is in no particular order, but look at some of these inside the distance props. So Munis versus Anders, its fight doesn't go to a decision, is minus 250. Okay. And you have that with fighters who look at the prices with Munis and Anders. You have 8,500, 7,700, so they're both very affordable. You're just going to want to play this fight. I mean, not to mention that Munis has, is a submission guy and has grappling upside. So this is a fight you're really going to want to target. So that's the first. We'll get back to Maverick Blanchfield in a minute. Silva, Jordan Wright, fight doesn't go to a decision, minus 450. Huh? I don't think I've ever seen that. You're just going to have to play this, and you think Bruno Silva, 9,400, that's pretty expensive, but I mean, it's just so likely that he knocks the guy out. I mean, he's a 3.5 to 1 favorite. And look at that inside the distance prop, as I mentioned. As a matter of fact, you have Silva wins by TKO was minus 160. I mean, he's favored to knock the guy out. So it's rough. And I don't want to play Jordan Wright at 3 to 1. I mean, it's just not going to happen enough times to make it worth it, as far as I'm concerned. Next one, Sakai Tuivasa. I mean, look at this fight to target. You have basically pick'em to go under 1.5 rounds, and it's a pick'em fight. look at the price tags on these guys. You have two $8,100 fighters pretty much. Tuivasa's 83, Sakai 7,900, and the fights, pick'em to go under 2.5 rounds or 1.5 rounds. You're just gonna have to play this. I mean, I don't know exactly which one of these you have to play, but you got to play one of them. So, I mean, let's throw, just because, let's put the 3 favorites in we just talked about. Let's put Munis, Silva, Tuivasa, let's just put in Poirier, for example, Oliveira, for example. I mean, you don't really want to mess around with any fringe fights if you have these types of spots. For example, Munoz Cruz, I mean, terrible inside the distance prop. Even Emmett Inge, I mean, This one is fine. This one is minus 165 to go to this, to go to a decision. Fight doesn't plus 120, so even this one is not that great. You know, so this one is not even worth playing. We'll get back to O'Malley, Paiva in a second. The inside the distance prop is poor, but well, shouldn't say it's poor. We'll get to that in a second. Cutierrera France against Gorbrandt. Even this one, fight doesn't go to a decision, minus 190. I mean, this is a good fight to target. Cutierrera France versus Gorbrandt. Look at the price tags on these guys. 7,500. And then Gorbrandt 8,700. One of these maybe. And then if all of that wasn't good enough for you, you have Neil Ponzinibio, which again is a minus 200 to go to a decision. Favored, well, it's pretty close to pick them to go within 2.5 rounds, and this is a key fight. So before we even get to these big favorites who are kind of smash plays, you have these fights that just have so much upside with respect to finishing power that you could make an argument that you could play these fights without playing any of these kind of smash play locks, which we're going to get to in a second. So the point of it is we're going to get to them, but these other fights like Inge Emmett, Cruz Munoz, you know, even Blanchfield Maverick, which is in some situations it might be a good fight to go after. On this card, it's just asking for it. Perez Schnell, well, we'll get to that. Minner Hall, okay, Derrick Minner versus Ryan Hall. I mean, Ryan Hall's a submission expert. He's probably going to finish this guy in 2 rounds, but I don't even know if that's going to be enough, you know, to overcome some of these first round KOs that we're probably going to have. Costa. So let's get into some of these guys. Amanda Nunez. She's a minus 900 favorite. She's going to win. And she's probably going to finish her. It's minus 2.5 to go under 2.5 rounds. Is that going to be enough at her price? Is that going to be enough at 9,500? Maybe, but it's not 100% clear. I mean, if you have to give up one of those key fights to get to Nunez, maybe you don't want it. Okay. Likewise, you have Sean O'Malley. He's a minus 300 favorite. And it's about pick'em to go under 2.5 rounds, but he could just torture this guy for 3 rounds and still get over 100 points. But again, question, is 100 points going to be good enough for 9,100? Well, maybe. Okay, so between Nunez and O'Malley, even though Nunez is certainly more likely to win, I just feel as though you're going to be able to do just as well with O'Malley and save the 400. Okay, so I would probably prioritize O'Malley over Nunez. And the other kind of, this is one fight that I wanted to kind of just talk about. This is Jillian Robertson versus Priscilla Cutierrera. What's interesting about this fight is Jillian Robertson is a grappling expert. So even though her inside the distance prop is not that great, she has that grappling upside that, you know, gives her, you know, that gives her the chance to, you know, put up a good score. But even this one, Jillian Robertson, what's her price? She's 9,300. I don't know if I don't know, Jillian Robertson, 9,300. It's really close. Like, even if you told me she was going to win, and she was like minus infinity, and even if you told me she was going to win by grappling, I guess you kind of have to play her, right? So what do? I mean, you have Nunez, who's going to win, right? You have O'Malley, who's probably going to win and could put up a good score. You have Jillian Robertson, who could win, who's probably going to win and could put up a good score. What do you do with this? Well, what you do is you got to just pay attention and play the ownership game. If you get to any of these fighters and it turns out, and again, I'm not going to be around to put ownership. I might be able to put ownership projections up from where I am, but that's what I would do. I would prioritize which of those big fighters, whether it be Nunez, O'Malley, or Robertson, would be the lowest owned. Okay, and probably go with that one. That's the only thing I can do, because I really want to have. I'd love to have 6 of these fights. Really, I would fade all of this. I would fade Nunez. I would fade Robertson. I would fade O'Malley if I could get to all of these. But let's do some let's have some fun for a second. Let's just pick the underdog in these fights. Let's see what that gives us for our salary goes. Let's say we go Sakai. Oh, how do you fade Bruno Silva here at 9,400? Well, let's do it for a second. Let's play Anders. Okay, let's play Oliveira. Let's play Cara France, just because, and let's play Jeff Neal. Okay. Then you could do some business, right? Then you could change one of these to a favorite and play one of these 9,100s. As a matter of fact, if you wanted to, let's say you were just so confident you want to play O'Malley, which is fine. And then let's say you wanted to play, let's say Nunez. Is Nunez a better play than Bruno Silva? That's the question. This is such a tough card. Let's say you want to play Nunez. Now you can do this, right? And that's the beauty of these key fights, is that you can play the underdogs in these fights and then get up to some of these high-priced guys like Nunez, O'Malley, Bruno Silva, Costa, okay? So that's the way I would approach this slate, is take these key fights, okay? Don't be afraid to play the underdog and play multiple underdogs from that group and pair those probably with 1 or 2 of those key big locks like Nunez, O'Malley. I do consider Bruno Silva almost a lock, but Bruno Silva, maybe even Jillian Robertson. So that would be my advice. Or if you want, you could play lineups that play the favorites in those key fights and just kind of and then just don't play those big price locks. But what I would not do is play really any exposure from these others, and they can burn you. You know, Emmett can knock each out. Each can knock Emmett out. Cruz, Munoz, whatchamacallit, Maverick Blanchfield, probably a good fight. I just don't think it rates the score the same as some of these others. Perez, Schnell, Perez, you know, I wouldn't play him in this spot. Ryan Hall, Minner. Ryan Hall could get a sub and it will mean nothing to the scoring system. I mean, honestly. So that's what I would do. As far as, again, if you want to really be a pain in the neck, are there any of these high-priced favorites that you want to get leverage against by playing against them? I'm not playing Pena against Nunez. It's just minus 800. It's plus 800. It just doesn't happen enough to make it worth it. I'm not playing Paiva plus 280. One thing I might do, just for funsies, as they say, is play Cutierrera. And the only reason why is because it's such a style thing. You know, Jillian Robertson should get her to the mat, wrestle her, get an easy win over 2-3 rounds, maybe submit her, whatever it is. But if she can't, if it is a striking matchup, then Cutierrera is totally in play. Okay. She beat Mazzani, who went for takedowns and all that stuff. She got to her, and then she does have another KO on her record. So I do feel as though that Cutierrera, if she does get the fight she wants, she could win at 6,900. So that would be the one fighter I would leverage against some of these popular high scorers. But aside from, and I wouldn't play Tony Kelly here, but aside from that, it's just those key fights I mentioned. Weave in the lowest owned of between O'Malley and Nunez, I guess, and Bruno Silva. And and really resist the temptation to play any of the other fights. That's it. Hopefully this fight stays together. This fight card stays together. Hopefully there aren't too many changes that will require me to post an update on this, because I really might not be able to do it. And have fun with this card. It's going to be awesome.